Hi, I'm Mike Harrington, and in 2014, I embarked on a health journey resulting in my losing over 200 pounds on my own. Since then, I've been sharing my story and have become an advocate for healthy living. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, a podcast show about health, wellness, and amazing people to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health.
The segment of this show known as Patrick County Blessings is yours today. We're happy to welcome as our special guest the creator of this program, our friend Van Rowe. Good morning, Van.
Good morning, Richard. It is a great morning this morning. I am just happy to be here, but I got to give you a quick update. Yesterday at the soup kitchen, we did 120 plates delivered, and this was a full-blown Thanksgiving meal. And I just want to thank all my volunteers that made that possible. It was a lot of work, a little bit of chaos in the middle of everything, but we got it done, and everybody was happy, and it was a great event. But, Richard, I have a special guest this morning. I'm proud to have Mike Harrington and his wife Terry with me this morning. They are Mike is Donna's son, my wife. And Mike has an incredible story to tell. And please, I encourage everybody to listen closely and take to heart what Mike is going to share with us, because there's many out there that suffer the same dilemma and problems that he overcame in a mighty way. Mike ain't half the man he used to be.
Literally.
But Mike, double.
Yeah. Mike was a 400-plus pounder, and now he's a fit, physically active and creative guy that is just excited about life. And let me introduce you. I'm just going to turn the show over to Mike and let him roll with this any way he chooses to.
Well, let's welcome
Mike.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, hey, it's a blessing to be here, and I got to tell you, this time of year, this is the time of year where we're all thankful for something. And as I reflect upon everything that I've gained in my life, it's great to be here with family and friends who care and support me. And I hope that you guys really enjoy what I'm about to tell you, because as Van said, it's been a journey, and it's a continuous journey. It is true, at one time in my life, and I know here I am talking on a radio to folks, you can't see me. We'll give you my website at the end here. But at one time, yes, I did weigh over 400 pounds. It's an incredible story that is more than just a mere weight loss. It's really about how I overcame a lot of adversities in my life. I found out over time that it wasn't just the weight itself. It was really a lot of things in my mind that were keeping me in that state. Like a lot of people, I had tried just about every type of thing to lose weight, diets, support groups, patches, all kinds of things out there. And at the end of the day, as many of you guys out there who struggle know, you end up at the end, sometimes you do lose weight, sometimes you get frustrated and give up. But there's never ever any sort of solution that gives you that permanent, sustainable kind of health. I got to the point, it was about 2010, around the time that my father died from his poor health habits, that I realized I had to do something about myself. And at that time, I was over 400 pounds, and I was scared because I watched my father die before my eyes because of what he had done health-wise. Now, he had died of cancer, but I really felt like he regretted it. And I think it's that regret that sometimes we take for granted when we're going through life, and we get so wrapped up in so many things that distract us from taking care of our health. He got to the point where it was too late. And the effect on me was so profound. I made a promise, and I said to my mother, I said, Mom, I'm not going to let his death be in vain. We need to learn something from his poor health habits. So I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm going to do something. But like I said, I had for many, many years tried, failed, gained back. I knew I had to do something that was permanent. I wasn't about to do anything and do it all over again. Now, at that time, I had a number of health problems myself: sleep apnea, prediabetes, high blood pressure. I was pretty much on a death train myself. But the amazing thing that I realized as I talked to my doctor and I started to think about it, a lot of these things were in my own control. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us look at these situations and some of our health problems and we think that it's out of our control. But a lot of it is. Now, I follow a branch of medicine called lifestyle medicine. And what lifestyle medicine is about is taking a look at our health and realizing that there are aspects of it that are within our control that we can handle through what we put in our mouths, and that's food, cigarettes, and whatever else, the amount of physical activity that we get, and stress management, which is often overlooked. When I realized that, I said to myself, I can do something. It is possible. But it's harder than you think, obviously. I will never tell anybody to do what I did was an easy thing. But on the other hand, when you look at what I did, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope, because I'm just a regular guy who just stood up one day and just said, I'm not taking it anymore. It's profound. And when I started on my journey, it was about the time that my mom and Van were moving back down here to Virginia. I didn't know where I was going to go, but all I knew was I was just going to keep pushing forward. For those of you who are interested, and the most common question is, how did you do it, right? What's your secret? Well, guys, I've got good news. I've got bad news. I'll give you the bad news first. I have no secret. There are no secrets here. It's what we've suspected all along. We got to watch what we eat, and we got to incorporate a healthy physical activity. Now, I'm not saying doing anything crazy, but we'll talk about some of the things that I did. For those of you out there who have cell phones and apps on your phone, I used a simple app called MyFitnessPal to help me track everything I ate. Now, that's important because at 400 pounds, I really had no idea what was going into my mouth. I'm an emotional eater. Hey, there's a reason why they call it comfort food, right? Food makes me feel good, and I love eating. I still do. But when you use food for the wrong reasons, when you use it for something that's kind of empty, you end up where I am, or was, with an unmanageable problem. And like any addiction, it can get out of control.
Food can be an addiction, can't it, Mike?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I even struggled. There are some people out there, and believe it or not, I think we've all heard of anorexia, bulimia, and other eating disorders. Men struggle from them too. I binge eat. I still struggle with it at times when I feel stressed, because it's kind of an automatic response to dealing with things. And that's kind of how people end up with addiction sometimes, is that we don't really know an effective way to deal with our stress. So we turn to something that gives us kind of a false sense of comfort. But at the end of the day, you end up with more than you can handle if you continue down that path. So we'll talk about some of the things that I did to learn to help substitute for that.
Mike, I want you to also share what you didn't do in regards to there was no surgeries, there was no special diet, there was no, drugs or medication you took. Address that issue.
You know, and it's a funny thing, even to this day. There are people who swear up and down that I had, quote, the surgery. Now, I'm going to give you two opinions on this, okay? Number one, I'm not up against surgery. I think there are people who should have it because of wherever they are. But at the same time, what I always say is it's more important what you do after you lose the weight. And I chose not to. And the reason I chose not to is because I didn't feel I was going to learn anything from having the surgery. I really felt it was important for me to focus on changing my habits. Because if I didn't change that, how was I going to sustain what I lost?
Exactly.
And I think that's something we often forget about. I think often when we look at weight loss, now guys, I know some of you out there may be suffering like I did. Maybe you had 50 pounds, maybe you had 100 pounds. If you have 200 plus pounds like I did, it's a daunting, scary thing. And you might look at it and go, my goodness, how am I ever going to do this?
And Mike, I want to mention that you lost those 220 pounds or so in 11 months.
So let's talk about that, because I'll be honest with you, Van, I never expected it to go like that. You know, the first several months, all I did was really track what I ate and get some moderate exercise. What I was really focusing on was changing my habits. What started to happen as I moved into the life transformation that I was embarking on and getting some momentum, I'll be honest, I went a little crazy, and I wouldn't say I overdid it, but I pushed myself. Because the more I saw that I was losing weight, the better I was feeling about myself. And that's actually a key thing, you know, the better I was feeling about myself, the more I kept pushing. Losing 200 plus pounds in 11 months. Now, granted, I have met other people who've done it. Would I recommend that? Not necessarily. You got to kind of go at your own pace. There's no one size fits all when it comes to health.
I know people listening right now. I personally know them. I deliver soup to some of these folks. They're overweight. They're sedentary. They're senior citizens. They're sitting in their easy chair. And that's the extent of their activity. And it saddens me to see that. How can they get out of that easy chair and do what they think they can't do?
Well, physical activity is an important piece of this, okay? And I will give you some of the things that I recommend in that. But let's be clear. Physical activity is probably the minor piece when it comes to, if we're going to talk about, quote, losing weight. When it comes to weight, the majority really comes down to what we're eating.
Exactly.
And we got to make smarter choices if we want to become more healthy. Does not mean deprivation. This does not mean you can't eat, but you got to be more choosy about what you tend to put in your mouth. Now, I still eat chocolate cake and whatever else, but I think about it now, and I also don't eat it all the time. You got to let a treat be a treat. Mm-hmm. You know, now, some of you folks, now I'm 47, you know, I had 40 some odd years of habits to undo. Again, what I did was aggressive. What I tell folks is you got to take it one step at a time. Much like the beautiful mountains out here, you can't just climb that mountain in one big step, right? You got to take steps. Now, these concepts it's hard to explain, and that's why when people ask me what my secret is, I can't just sit down and just say, well, here you go, just do X, Y, and Z. You got to make small changes. Van, you've told me, even yourself, you've started to make some small changes in habits.
Yes. And you've inspired me to do that, because seeing what you did, I had to say to myself, well, gosh dog it, I can do it. And so in a small way, I've done it and doing it. And I'm proud to say I've lost about 4 or 5 pounds this month. Nothing big, but it helps.
And that's a good thing, because, one of the things is if you try to take on too much all at once, it doesn't allow your body and your mind to adapt. And let me emphasize that, because a lot of people tell me when they want to go, I get all kinds of people talking to me about, Mike, I want to lose weight. I'm going to jump in this with both feet. And, well, that's why a lot of people end up getting discouraged. Because if you try to take on too much change all at once, it can be overwhelming.
Here's a small change that I do. It sounds silly, but I think in the overall it helps. I no longer feel compelled to clean my plate. If there's some leftover mashed potatoes on the plate, I leave it. When I've had enough, I stop. I was brought up, eat everything you got on your plate.
Exactly.
And so I don't do that no more.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Van. I think sometimes the way we're raised can influence some of the choices that we make. And even in my household too, when I was growing up with my mom, there were things that you have to kind of look at a little differently, because let's face it. Now I'm going to throw some statistics at y'all, all right? So, we know that we have an obesity problem, not just in our country, but in the world. We've got countries now like China and India that are facing famine and obesity at the same time. Well, what's happening in these countries? Well, if you look at some of these places, westernization, I call it the McDonaldization. They're getting McDonald's, they're getting fast food. They're not going back to the basics. Now, a lot of you folks around here grew up around farms. I grew up in eastern rural Connecticut myself. I grew up around farms. And how many of us can say nowadays that we're eating a lot of fresh home-cooked meals? Maybe some are. But what kind of choices are we making? It's so much easier to eat convenience, isn't it? Open up a can or a box.
Pop it in the microwave, grab a handful, and out the door you go.
Exactly. And that's part of the problem of the society we're living in today. It's a complex problem. And we don't have enough time to talk today about some of the things I'm seeing. But I hope I can leave you folks with a couple tidbits of advice here. And one of the things is, as we're talking about, is if you are going to make habits, I think many of you understand some of the things that you should kind of cut back on. But I'll give you examples. Maybe you like sugar in your iced tea. Well, maybe you should cut back on a little of that, because we know that sugar, too much, is bad for your health, especially if you're diabetic. You have a weight problem. We know that there's sugar in everything. Things that don't even make sense have sugar in them.
Yeah.
So those are some of the types of things that you want to take a look at.
And it's just not sugar. It's corn syrup and a lot of the other substitute sweeteners today.
Exactly. And so here's a thought, too. Sometimes we take care of our other things in our life, maybe a car. I told Van the other day, I said, if I handed you a bottle of liquid and I said, here, dump this in your truck, you're going to ask me what that is. Yeah. But how often are we doing that with our bodies, where we're picking up something, and we're not even thinking about what we're putting into our mouths?
Exactly.
And if you think about that, that's a little scary. How many of us ever turn around the back of a product and look at what's in that? There's stuff on the back of these labels we can't even pronounce.
Exactly.
And so it really comes down to you are the master of your own body. You own a car, or if you own something, you want to learn at least enough how to take care and maintain it. Well, the higher power, God gave us these bodies. We need to learn how to take care of them, right? We need to learn how to not just take care of the exterior, right, wearing clothes and things like that, but the inside. One of the things, here I am on a radio station, and y'all can't see me, but that's the weight loss transformation, the body, the fat that I lost, is probably the least important aspect of what I did. The stuff that's more important is what I did to my health. I no longer have diabetes. I no longer have sleep apnea. I no longer have high blood sugar, pre-diabetes. I'm off the medications that I had to take. Now, interesting thing, I was reading a statistic on the United States Centers for Disease Control. Over $170 billion, and I think my quote is about right, but over $170 billion, this is a 2008 study, go towards healthcare costs, right? Now, one of the things that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine says, they estimate, are you ready for this? Maybe I'll ask you, Van, what do you think the percentage is of these healthcare costs that they say are due to poor lifestyle choices? You throw a number out.
50%.
50%?
I'd say higher.
You say higher, Richard? What do you got? Throw a number out.
75.
75. Boys, I tell you what, you're a little low. You were closer, though, Reg. 80%. 80%, guys. Now, let me repeat what this is. 80% of healthcare costs, according to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, are due to factors that are in our control. Lifestyle choices. Now, I'm simplifying it, right? Because lifestyle choice, maybe some of y'all out there have limited mobility. You can't get around as much, so maybe you can't get exercise, or maybe, I can't afford to buy fresh fruits and vegetables and this and that. Well, I think sometimes we make it complicated. We don't necessarily have to go to a special gym, or we have to, eat all these, special foods. It's back to the basics. And I think some of the things you're doing, Van, is we're taking a look at trying to change the way the community is with the healthy foods. You think about the soups you're feeding people, and
we make a good effort at trying to get the soups as not just a bowl of soup, but a meal in a jar that's balanced with protein, nourishing vitamin, fresh vegetables out of the garden. People donate that, and we process it, freeze it, and that's what goes in our soups. It's all homemade, even down to the pinto beans. We enjoy what we're doing, and I hope that we're having a little bit of an impact. Mike, when you started walking,
yep,
what was your first effort at walking like?
Sure. And it was funny. It was actually my wife that got me started. I didn't really like walking. Physically, I was okay at 400 pounds at the time. I didn't have a lot of problems physically, but I found it kind of boring at first. And when we would go out, eventually, I started to find that I liked it. Now, a lot of people ask me if I run and this and that, and honestly, I don't like it because it's kind of hard on the knees and whatnot. But eventually, the walking turned into hiking. And as I started venturing out into the woods and into nature, I found that I was opening up kind of mentally and spiritually. I found that as I was communing with nature, it was healing me on the inside. And that's kind of what I needed. And again, guys, you heard me say this in the beginning. This wasn't just about my weight loss. This was about a healing inside, about a person who at one time I hated myself. And to be honest with you, at one time I didn't want to live because I felt so hopeless. But I also had problems, from my childhood that I took on with me, things that happened in my life that caused me to feel sort of that way. And I think a lot of us feel that way. But I found with the walking, it gave me a time to reflect. They've shown studies out there talking about walking out in nature, and they say that there's a positive psychological effect on your brain when it comes to walking out in nature. Now, out here in the Blue Ridge area, talk about some beautiful areas where we can get out and enjoy nature. I tell you what, it's quite inspiring.
It is, and there's plenty of trails to walk, and just walking off on the Blue Ridge. Mike, y'all need to move on down here to Patrick County.
Certainly consider it.
Well, Mike, I must say that I am currently taking a healthy lifestyle class designed to prevent diabetes. And the things that we're learning are exactly what you've been talking about here this morning, about watching what you eat. And yeah, I think the slogan is watch what you eat and move your feet.
Exactly.
You got to be active.
It's that simple.
Yeah. So,
Mike, please tell us your website or where people can go to get
Absolutely.
more information about you and follow you on Facebook or whatever.
Sure. Everything is off my website. It's very simple. MikeInspiresMe.com. Tried to make it simple for people, and off of there you can find my Facebook. I do a weekly program I've been trying called Hike with Mike, where you can see me live out in the woods in some of my hiking spots, and I look forward to seeing you some guys.
Fantastic.
I have to ask, how much total weight did you lose, and what do you weigh now?
Okay, so, well, that's great. I lost about 209 pounds, and at the time, I kind of pushed it a little further than I needed. And I lost, let me tell you, when you lose weight, you also lose muscle. So I kind of gained some back as I've been lifting muscle mass. And today I'm about 225, which I'm a 5'10 guy, but I'm pretty, if you guys check out my pictures, I've put on a nice set of guns here now. So I'm pretty proud of that.
You look great.
Thank you.
And your story, it certainly inspires me.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, Richard, we'll be back next month. I've got some guests coming in, and we're going to talk about the healthy foods that grow wild. And so we're going to talk about some of those things. And I'm certainly glad to have Mike and his lovely wife, Terry, here with us today. And hopefully when they come back in town, we'll have another program for them.
Okay. Well, I've certainly enjoyed listening to your story. Mike, thanks so much for sharing that.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Mike Harrington has been our special guest, along with Van Rowe of various Patrick County ministries, including the Patrick County Soup Kitchen over in Patrick Springs. And congratulations on that great thing the Soup Kitchen did for many of your clients yesterday with the Thanksgiving meal.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun.
Mike, you and your wife enjoy your stay here in the mountains of Patrick County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mike Inspires Me podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out some of the past ones you may have missed. For more information on me and my story, go to MikeInspiresMe.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Mike Harrington Official and on Twitter at Mike Inspires Me. Stay healthy and stay awesome.